Okay, members of council, if you can please take your seats. This meeting is now resumed. Members, before the recess, if I can have members of council to please take their seats, and members of the public, please. Members, before the recess, council was debating item T 2.18 on construction staging area for 281-289 Avenue Road. We will return to that item after release of member holds and the member motion run through. Councillor Perks.
Thank you, Speaker. On page 3, item TE 2.66, endorsement of events for liquor licensing purposes, I have an amendment which adds a few more locations. And with that amendment and thorough consultation with my Toronto East York Community Council colleagues, I can release the item.
Councillor Layton.
As people are looking on at this, this was sent yesterday for over 10 venues over 20 days of liquor license extensions. Sent yesterday in 2 wards. It is an unfair practice that we are accepting this and that it is all being put on the backs of our wonderful, wonderful clerks. We need to change this soon.
We have to start up that committee again.
I think so.
Yes.
I think that AGCO, let's stick it to the AGCO committee. We had one.
No, we did have one, and I don't know what happened. Okay, so on the on page 3T 2.66, the amendment is on the screen. On favor, carried, recorded. On the amendment, Councillor Fletcher? Yes, on the amendment. Okay.
Councillor Bailao, please.
The amendment is adopted unanimously, 21 in favor.
Thank you. Item as amended, on favor, carried. Okay, so members, we will now go through the members' motions. MM 2.1. Notice if this motion has been given, this motion is subject to referral to the Scarborough Community Council. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Carried. On the item, all in favor? Carried. MM 2.2. Notice if this motion has been given, this motion is subject to referral to the Infrastructure and Environment Committee. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Carried. On the item, all in favor? Carried. MM 2.3. Notice if this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the Infrastructure and Environment Committee. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. Recorded vote to waive referral.
Councillor Carroll, please.
The motion to waive referral carries 18-3.
Okay, I heard Councillor Holliday first. Because I can, his voice. Okay. That is very nice, thank you. All right, I won't tell anybody. MM 2.4. Notice if this motion has been given, this motion is subject to referral to the Executive Committee. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Recorded vote.
Councillor Matlow, please. Thank you.
Councillor Cole, please.
The motion to waive referral carries 15-6.
Councillor Fletcher said hold before I even held it. MM 2.5. A notice if this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the Toronto and East York Community Council. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Recorded.
Councillor Thompson, please.
The motion to waive referral carries unanimously 22 in favor.
Okay. Does anybody want to hold this? Okay. On the item, on favor, carried. MM 2.6. Notice if this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the Infrastructure and Environment Committee. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Carried. On the item, all in favor? Carried. MM 2.7. Notice if this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the General Government and Licensing Committee. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. Recorded.
Councillor Robinson, thank you.
Where is he? Is he on vacation?
The motion to waive referral does not carry. The vote is 14-8. The required 2/3 majority has not been achieved.
So maybe we can send it to him wherever he is. MM 2.8. Notice if this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the General Government and Licensing Committee. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Carried. On the item, all in favor? Recorded vote.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The item is adopted 21 to 1.
MM 2.9, we've dealt with it yesterday. MM 2.10, notice if this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the Executive Committee. A two-thirds vote is required to waive referral. Recorded vote.
Councillor Fletcher, please.
Councillor Pasternak, thank you.
The motion to waive referral carries 17 to 5.
Okay. On the item, recorded. Recorded vote.
Councillor Pasternak, please. Councillor Robinson.
The item is adopted 20 to 2.
MM 2.11. Notice if this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the Toronto and East York Community Council. A two-thirds vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Carried. On the item, all in favor? Carried. Recorded? Okay.
Councillor Pasternak, Councillor Perruzza, and Councillor Robinson, please. Councillor Perruzza, please.
The item is adopted unanimously, 22 in favor.
MM 2.12. Notice that this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the Special Committee on Governance. A two-thirds vote is required to waive referral. Recorded vote.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The motion to waive referral does not carry. The vote is 13 to 10. The required two-thirds majority has not been achieved.
MM.
I initially voted green, but then when I realized what I was doing, I quickly changed my mind and voted red, but it wasn't captured that way. Could we just do that one again, please? Please? Please?
But does that
I know you might not think it's a big deal, but it is for me.
I'll move to reopen that vote. No, he's not.
all in favor of reopening for Councillor Perruzza?
Probably sick.
You want a recorded
Very
vote?
sick.
What's wrong?
Yeah, I need someone to
I
reopen.
said yes.
Counselor Fletcher. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so let's redo the vote.
Yeah. Your hearing got better. So your
The motion to waive referral does not carry. The vote is 12 to 12. There is a tie. The item is referred.
Thank you. MM 2.13. Notice that this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the Toronto and East York Community Council. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Carried. On the item, all in favor? Recorded vote.
Councillor Bradford, please.
Councillor Perruzza and Councillor Wong Tam, please. Councillor Perruzza, please.
Okay.
The item is adopted unanimously, 24 in favor.
MM 2.14. Notice of this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the North York Community Council. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Carried. On the item, all in favor? Recorded? Recorded vote.
Councillor Matlow. Councillor Karygiannis, please. Councillor Fletcher.
The item is adopted 22 to 2.
MM 2.15. Notice that this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the General Government and Licensing Committee. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. Recorded vote to waive referral.
Councillor Thompson, Councillor Matlow, and Councillor Bradford, please.
The motion to waive referral carries 19 to 5.
Councillor Fletcher would like to hold. MM 2.16. Notice if this motion has been given. This motion is subject to referral to the Executive Committee. A 2/3 vote is required to waive referral. All in favor of waiving referral? Recorded? Did you want to hold this one too, Councillor Fletcher?
Councillor Thompson, please. Councillor Karygiannis.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The motion to waive referral carries 21 to 3.
Is somebody holding this? Councillor Thompson. MM 2.17. Notice if this motion has not been given, a two-thirds vote is required to waive notice. This motion is subject to referral to the North York Community Council. A two-thirds vote is required to waive referral. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. All in favor of waiving notice? Record it.
Councillor Karygiannis, please.
The motion to waive notice carries 23 to 1.
Oh, it hasn't been approved yet. This now all in favor of waiving referral? No, that was notice. All in favor of waiving referral? Record it. Oh, come on. We do the final motion recorded, Councillor Pasternak.
Councillor Robinson, please.
The motion to waive referral carries unanimously, 24 in favor.
Now we're going to vote on the motion. Recorded vote.
Councillor Holliday, please. Thank you.
The item is adopted unanimously, 24 in favor.
Okay, so now it's carried unanimously. Yes, just one moment. I understand that if Councillor is okay, if the council is okay with that, Councillor Cole just wants to speak for 30 seconds. Councillor Cole?
Point of privilege, yes. I just want to say, I want to thank members of council for taking this historic vote, that we've really made an important step in terms of preserving Italian heritage in Toronto by doing this. I want to thank former councillors Al-Jamari and Councillor Cole for also being very involved in initial stages. And I want to thank all the volunteers who took on this attempted scheme to develop the Columbus Centre, and they fought hard and long to save it. I've got people here like former MP and colleague of Councillor Karygiannis, Joe Volpe is here. My granddaughter's here, Lucia Taylor. And all the, Mary McDonald from Heritage Toronto, what a great job she did. And all the volunteers that really fought long and hard. And I want to thank them all for a job, well, fatto una buona job, John Lombardi would say. And Councillor Peruzza, yes.
Pardon? I can't hear you. Oh, I know, but this is special. I mean, come on. It's Italian heritage. We have to have them clap. Yeah, no. I mean, Councillor Cole asked for it, and normally we don't allow people to clap. And so, you know, yeah. But it won't happen again, no. Councillor Coe, when you said bona joba, isn't that what Joe Fody used to say? Yes. Was Johnny Lombard or Joe Fody? Okay, let's continue. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. MM 2.18. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. This motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion has been added to the agenda as before council for debate. All in favor? Carried. On the oh yeah, we're on the item. Thank you. MM 2.19. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. This motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion has been added to the agenda as before council for debate. All in favor of the item? Carried. MM 2.20. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. This motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion has been added to the agenda as before council for debate. Recorded vote.
Councillor Layton. Councillor Ainsley.
Councillor Perruzza.
The item is adopted, 22 to 2.
No, the item is already before us. Okay, so MM 2.21. Yeah, so Councillor Holliday, you wanna hold? Okay. MM 2.22. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. This motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion has been added to the agenda before council for debate. All in favor? Recorded vote.
Councillor Fletcher, please. Councillor Karagianis.
Councillor Pasternak, please. Councillor Robinson.
The item is adopted unanimously, 24 in favor.
MM 2.23. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. This motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion has been added to the agenda before council for debate. On the item? Carried. Recorded.
Councillor Matlow.
The item is adopted unanimously, 24 in favor.
MM 2.24. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. This motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion has been added to the agenda before council for debate. All in favor of the item? Carried. MM 2.25. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. This motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion been added to the agenda is before council for the debate. All in favor on the item? Carried. MM 2.26. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. This motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion has been added to the agenda and is before council for debate. On the item? Carried. MM 2.27. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair. This motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion has been added to the agenda is before council for debate. All in favor? Carried. MM 2.28. This motion has been deemed urgent by the chair, and this motion is not subject to a vote to waive referral. This motion has been added to the agenda is before council for debate. On the item, all in favor? Carried. So that's it for the members' motions. Okay, so we're now going to go back to T 2.18, which is construction staging area for 281 and 289 Avenue Road. Councillor Matlow, I believe that you had a motion and you were going to speak. Okay, Councillor Matlow?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I have a motion. So one item really reiterates a motion that I brought forward last term that was supported by Council, which is to look at, we are so often in a situation where after a development is approved, whether it be through the city process or it goes to the appeals body, that only after that is there real consideration for the construction management plan and through site plan about it, even how this is going to be built and where it's going to be built from and how it actually will, sorry, excuse me, Speaker, I'm sorry, guys, will actually get done without necessarily occupying road lanes or sidewalks, any of the public space that we, Madam Speaker, colleagues are indicating that others are, Councillor Thompson, did you? Councillor Thompson's having trouble.
Councillor...
Did you perk my, thanks.
I did, I stopped it. Councillor Fillion? Councillor Fletcher? Councillor Perks? Layton? Cressy?
No,
Councillor Matlow is speaking.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Anyway, it really just to say that it's only after the approval that all of a sudden the city staff are they struggle to figure out how to address the impacts on people's ability to get around our city and safe pedestrian walkways. So I believe we need to really change the entire process in reverse, where they come to us, developers come to us, with as much as they can, some sense of how they intend to build the project as part of the consideration process, and that's something that I think needs to be reformed. I don't believe that developers, frankly, should have a heaven-given right to just assume that every time they want to build a condo, that they're going to necessarily be able to take over streets and sidewalks that belong to the people of Toronto. I don't believe it should work that way, and I know that most of you feel the same way as I do. The other item is specifically to do with the corner of Cottingham and Avenue Road, and this, Cottingham is the outlet for the neighborhood, and there are significant concerns about safety at that corner with additional staging and hoarding on a lane of Avenue Road. I don't agree that we should be giving up a lane on Avenue Road to the developer. I also recognize that, and this is why Councillor Thompson and I have worked well together on this, because I also understand the reality in front of us. That being said, though, just so you know, this developer, when he first wanted to build here, initially wanted to use Robertson Davies Park adjacent to the property. And he was told right out of the gate by city staff, we don't do that. We don't allow parks to be used for staging areas for construction. Not only did he not hear that from city staff, he then went and wrote a letter to the whole community and dropped it door to door to door, asking the residents to lobby me and city staff to allow him to build his building from the park. We once again said we don't, not only do we not do that, but we don't want to set a precedent so that other parks in the future might be the aim of developers to build from. He wouldn't take that for an answer, and he continued lobbying for this park. And when I say lobbying, I mean he literally lobbied and lobbied and lobbied, and then came forward with the lane. At that point, his behavior was so inexcusable that I decided that it would be better to work with city staff rather than somebody who was not willing to actually address realities to achieve the goals for the community that was fair. We looked at things, we looked at options, including perhaps even allowing for temporary daytime staging during off-peak hours and then having them remove it during peak hours. The challenge that was raised to me, though, and I appreciate city staff's advice, that the police, when they're paid duty there, they could make a decision that if a crane hoist is done outside of the hoarded area, that they could actually opt to just shut down the entirety of Avenue Road altogether, and that's not a good option either. So I'll conclude by just saying I'm fed up with developers just sort of bullying their way through. We have to make reasonable decisions. On principle, I disagree with this lane. I'm going to exhibit that in my vote. But I also believe that these amendments are important to move forward with. And ultimately, you know, I'm just frustrated, and I think a lot of you are too. What I'm told all the time is that if you don't approve a lane closure, they're going to go and sue you. They're going to go sue the city. Why do we live in a power dynamic where developers get to dictate to us when they're going to take over a sidewalk or a lane? Residents are frustrated by this too. It's one of the top reasons why we have traffic congestion in the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Matlow. Your time's up. Thank you. Okay, we have Councillor Thompson's motion. If we can put that on the screen. Okay, if we can ring the bells. Okay, recorded vote.
The amendment carries 18-3.
Okay, so Councillor Matlows. Yeah, I know.
Councillor Fletcher, please.
The motion carries unanimously, 21 in favor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so members, we have members' motions that were held down, and we have an in-camera item that we need to go in camera. Do we want to go through the members' motions first and then go in camera? All right. So, Councillor Fletcher, you held down MM 2.3, which is the Community Environment Days. Okay, and then you held the other one down. You, don't forget, you held them all down. Yes, I did. Okay, let me go, okay. Councillor Thompson, do we want to get to yours? MM 2.16, which is the
Give me a piece of paper.
business protection planning
Right.
for major transit projects.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Speaker. Through you, I just had some quick questions for the city manager. And I'm trying to find my copy, but I don't seem to have it. But my recollection is that in 2017, there was a request for you, city manager, to come back with a report on this very subject matter. I'm just wondering, where is that report, and why it hasn't returned yet to us? Actually, that's a pretty good.
Okay, who's answering the question?
I realized the city manager wasn't here when we actually did that, so.
So if I may, through the chair, so staff did brief me just before lunch, and I understand there is a report ready to come back as soon as we can get it in front of a committee.
And so the request that's being asked in this member's motion is essentially similar to what's been asked of you. So am I to deduce that you would do something different, or in fact, with respect to what's being asked, will your report then reflect what's being asked here?
If I can, just 1 second.
Because, I mean, I would move motions to ask about Eglinton Avenue, because I was hoping that that report would come and reflect that, the concerns that the business owners have there.
Yeah. So Michael's just going to,
Madam Speaker, why don't we just hold this down for a moment, please, because I think the staff's not prepared to answer my question. Okay. With great respect to the city manager, I certainly would like to just
All
wait.
right, let's hold
could.
it down. But the problem is that all the other motions, pardon? Well, Councillor Thompson, did you say you wanted to hold it down? Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead.
So thank you. Through you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Williams, this motion is similar to one that was made, I believe, in 2017, requesting, obviously, we look at a series of things. In some cases, a tax freeze, and looking at what we could do to assist business. You and I have had some discussions around the challenges that we're having across town. I think this relates to the downtown relief line and so on. I'm just wondering, when is the report coming back that was asked for in 2017 as it relates to the subject matter that's contained in the member's motion?
So with respect to recommendation 1, which refers to the west side of Metro, the crosstown, staff have been monitoring progress on that long list of suggestions that Councillor Cole provided to Council.
And Burnside.
And staff are prepared to bring that back as requested in this motion, an update on that in the second quarter of this year. That would give a progress report on all of those suggestions. Staff are also in the process of commissioning a study to take a look at what other jurisdictions and what programs would be feasible within the context of Toronto with respect to retail areas that are distressed for a significant period of time by construction. That work is about to commence. So I did speak to the mover of the motion about the possibility of pushing back the report back deadline by until Q1 of 2020, which is when we would have all the material ready and can address the issues on the relief line, but equally would be applicable to all major construction sites across the province, across the city.
That was sort of my concern why I held it, because I wanted to ensure that we weren't going to have two distinct report or actions taken on this matter that is global in nature in terms of the city. And so you're suggesting that the member's motion will be reflected in the report that you're working on that will be brought back in. Is it Q?
We're suggesting it be amended to Q1 of 2020 rather than Q3 of 19 as currently stated.
Okay, and is the, okay, fair enough then. Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Speaker.
And sorry, one other thing, Councillor. The study will embrace more options than what was embraced in Councillor Cole's motion. So some of the options, we're going to take a look at a broader list of possibilities.
And so I guess just leave.
Oh, hold on, there's too much noise here.
I agree.
Councillor Karygiannis, please. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So your report's going back in 2020. You said what was
we would like to suggest that we would have all the work done in time to report back to council in the first quarter of 2020.
And so in the meantime, how will we address some of the challenges that are faced by businesses, for example, that are on the crosstown route?
So we've already commenced a significant amount of work with respect to trying to help mitigate, to some extent, the challenges as a result of Councillor Cole and Councillor Burnside's earlier motion. So we've been moving on those. So we have a suite of programs that we're working with in terms of supporting areas that have BIAs and also supporting areas that don't have BIAs.
Just a sec. Councillors. Okay, but please, we can't listen when people are talking. Okay, Councillor Perruzza, we'd like to get this agenda done today. Okay, go ahead.
So I was trying to hear Mr. Williams's response, which I couldn't hear.
So, so we're going to bring back a review of many different options, and then in terms of in the interim,
yes,
the budget that will be in front of you over the next 6 weeks does include some money specifically for Crosstown to roll out in more extensive basis some of the ideas that were in Councillor Cole and Councillor Burnside's earlier motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher, you have questions?
There is the Eglinton motion, which is very clear, and you've been speaking to Councillor Thompson about that. But when we looked at expediting all of the work on the relief line, this is just a part of ensuring that we consider business protection as one of the threads to that needs to be considered in the planning of the relief line.
That's correct. I think you can anticipate our report indicating that this work should be done earlier in the process in terms of planning for business mitigation and for preventing as much as possible business disruption. Some is obviously going to always occur, but we need to have the plans and the budget in place from the get-go.
However, for the relief line, we're looking at utilities, sewers, property acquisition, and I think that this motion is intended to just place business protection as one of those many things that are part of the planning, without taking over your process, but actually advancing that a little bit in the early stages of the planning rather than after the work has
Correct.
begun.
Yes,
So you
very
would
much so.
agree that's important to
Yes.
embed that. And this is our opportunity. It was not embedded, was it, in the crosstown planning?
I think we were relying on Metrolinx to do a lot of that.
It wasn't embedded in perhaps the, wasn't embedded in the tracks and the new streetcar barns. No. So this would be a way of doing that to ensure that business mitigation and protection. Did I hear correctly that it's 100 businesses that have closed on Eglinton? That's the number
I've heard
I keep
different
hearing.
estimates. I don't have one that I myself feel reliable to repeat here. But it is significant.
When would you have that number?
We could work on that over the next few weeks and get back to you, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You can speak.
Oh,
Councillor Thompson to speak, you held. Pardon? Oh. But you held it. Oh. Councillor Fletcher?
no, Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Thompson.
Just waiting for my mic. Okay, where we are. So, Speaker, thank you. I want to thank Councillor Fletcher for bringing this motion forward. It has been a great challenge for many of the businesses, as we've heard, along Eglinton Avenue, from the very west to the very east, as part of the crosstown construction activities and so on. And we have been consulting with businesses on Eglinton Avenue from the area from Victoria Park essentially over to Kennedy Road. Many of them are feeling now the challenges that has come as a result of the construction activity and development along Eglinton Avenue. They have expressed their concern to myself and the former councillor and the current councillor in the area, Councillor Crawford, and so on. And so when I saw Councillor Fletcher's member's motion, certainly supportive of it, but I wanted to ensure and understand where the report that we had asked for in 2017 was, and as it related to, and it's put forward by then Councillor Cole and seconded by Burnside, looking at business protection and how we would help businesses in terms of mitigating some of the challenges and particularly the business loss, because what we know is that customers or potential customers will avoid, for the most part, these areas because of the challenges in terms of navigating whether or not it's using the transit that's actually in place or their vehicles, and in some cases cycling and so on. And so I wanted to ensure that we are going to, at least for short term, find some ways to help to mitigate some of the challenges that the businesses are having. Just last Friday, I had meetings with businesses on Eglinton Avenue, and many of them have seen a dramatic decrease with respect to the level of business, sales level have been impacted, and so on. And now it's going to, affect the number of employees and employment and so on. And I think it's something that we need to ensure that we consider when we plan these construction projects, albeit they're very important. They're part of the long-term sustainability and livability of the city and providing better transit. It's something that we all want, but we know that there's a corresponding impact that has, in many cases, rather detrimental effect on businesses and so on. We don't want to close businesses. We want to ensure that they open. We want to be able to retain them. We want to ensure that people are employed. I'm buoyed by the fact that in my conversation with Mr. Williams today about what can be done in terms of mitigating and helping in terms of short term until such time a real report comes back with a policy that's actually in place, we were able to do some things. I'm wanting to ensure in the future as well, when we have other, in this case, third parties such as Crosslink and Metrolink that are doing the construction development and so on, and as Councillor Fletcher pointed out, what needed to be embedded in this report request that came from a member's motion in 2017 was to ensure that there was more of a thread in terms of the overall concern and objectives to ensure that businesses can sustain themselves and can thrive, and or that we do as much as we can to help them to sustain during this particular period of construction. We're talking about additional, it was 7 years of construction, and so many of those businesses, unfortunately, if we don't help them, they will not survive. And clearly, I don't want to be a part of a system where we're going to kill business in this city. As Chair of Economic Development and Community Development, I don't want to see that, quite frankly. We want to enhance growth. We want to ensure that people can go to work, we live. And the businesses that are complaining, they're not, in my view, doing something that is unwarranted. It is their very survival that they're concerned with. And I think that when we make decisions, we ought to ensure that we factor those considerations in order to help, because clearly we want to progress and see things development and so on, but at the same time we want to make sure that we actually don't kill business. So those are the concerns that I have, and I'm hopeful that when this report comes back, we're able to obviously have a policy that will help us and guide us through the future, and in the interim we will do some short-term measures to actually help those businesses so that they can in fact sustain themselves and create the employment opportunity and the livelihood for the business owners as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher, did you want to speak?
Yes, I'll just speak quickly and say I'm happy, Councillor Thompson, if this is helping with thinking about how to handle the crosslinks when it comes into you or when the subway starts. But it's just been my experience in a couple of projects and then watching the Eglinton Crosstown that while we love transit and we need to build it right away, there is an impact there on local business communities that we didn't anticipate and we certainly wouldn't think of as an outcome, an acceptable outcome. And we need to look at what we have that we can do outside of giving some money to a business improvement area so people can be attracted to shop there when indeed they can't get in or they can't get through the sidewalk or it's just there's nowhere to park or it's just too difficult. And I do have a member of one of my BIAs in the Danforth who had a business on Eglinton and simply had to give it up because there just weren't enough people coming, even though there's a BIA there. So we can't say we'll help the BIA. We need to actually help the business owners. And I know it will be a painful discussion because at what level do we start assisting? What level do we talk about property tax relief? How do we ensure that people that have built their lives and have been in business for a long time aren't the victims of a great transit improvement? So on Pape Avenue, we're taking people's homes, we're doing different things. We've got big relationships with all of them. We're spending a lot of time talking to those people about the route and the impact on their residential property, but I don't think we spend near enough time talking about the impact and the business impact on the commercial property. So this is my intention, is to weave this theme into the many other threads that have to get started in order to have the relief line ready. And it was very exciting to go to Pape Station with the mayor and with Councillor Bradford, Councillor Robinson, and Councillor.
The pigeon, like you guys, I didn't go.
The pigeons were happy when I went to, but to announce that we're going to, and Councillor Crawford, that we were going to expedite the planning and expedite all the things that have to happen to make it shovel ready at a certain time. And this is to add this in as one of those things. So I hope you'll support this, Councillor Ford.
The item, do you want a recorded vote? Recorded vote. Oh, Councillor Perruzza. Oh, you have, okay. Councillor Perruzza? Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Speaker, this is obviously becoming an area of greater and greater interest to me. Why? Because we just underwent the construction of the Spadina subway extension in the area, and the Keel-Finch intersection, for example, as an example, was very, very bad for local businesses, for everybody. And it's not just businesses that suffer during these things; it's everybody. The entire community is kind of like, you know, in the middle of a big construction zone for a long period of time, and everybody suffers. We are just about to undertake another very significant project on Finch Avenue, as an example, and same kind of thing. Part of our difficulty with all this, Speaker, is that as part of the tenders, as part of the construction, you know, in terms of how we award contracts, we are not there yet in order to be able to minimize the impacts on local community. Why? Because we let the construction industry bring into play methods that they use for other types of construction. You know, like you build a condo, fence off the site, dig a big ditch, a big hole, and everybody in the neighborhood, well, you know what, kind of like be damned. Well, we need to start, and I understand why contractors and builders, they just want to use systems they know and understand in building out some of these things. Because that's what they know. Dig a ditch, pour a foundation, some steel, some concrete, up, cover it up, and then that's the way they do it. So we're not asking them to say, how else can we do this so that the impact on local neighborhoods is minimized? Can you dig, cover, reinstate the roadways, and then go underneath and work? Yes, you can. But we don't ask for that because nobody really has the capacity, a task for that. What would be involved in a non-conventional type of construction climate for these projects? Here's what I believe. I believe that as we move forward and we do more of these projects, the industry will develop systems to deal with that. They will. In the way they developed a system to build a condo. You know, flying forms, concrete, blah, 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 and everybody, eh? Exactly. Exactly. But we need to push on that. Because as more of these projects come online, it can't be same old, same old, same old. Because then otherwise, everybody suffers. We have to challenge the industry. And maybe initially there'll be a bit of a premium. But think of the savings on the back end in terms of lawsuits and all the other stuff. So I'm just hoping that that we actually turn our minds to this question in a serious way, as opposed to just kind of simply a motion every once in a while that says, hey, you know what, we need to, businesses in that area are dying, we need to open a laneway or whatever, because that's not going to work. That's not going to cut it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Recorded vote. Councillor Cole.
Thank you. This is a subject dear to my heart. If I just want to add that I know this motion was moved previously in the last council by Councillor Josh Cole and I think by Councillor Burnside, if I'm not mistaken. So I've had some history with this motion, and this whole issue that's being raised here. I think, as Councillor Perruzza said, there needs to be a rethink here on these mega projects because the impact on communities is enormous, and it's long-term. Again, in Eglinton, we've gone through this for a decade, and that's not including when you were the Honourable Mayor of York, when they started the first Eglinton subway that was filled in by another government that got elected and said subways were a thing of the past. Anyways, so we went through 2 of these things on Eglinton, twice. Dug up the street, destroyed everything. Anyways, and we all certainly want this investment. We all do. And it's a critical investment in Toronto's future, in 100-year infrastructure. It provides high-paying employment opportunities. And just to mention, one of the things that is unique about the Crosstown is that for the first time in a infrastructure project, there was a community benefits program included. And that community benefits program basically was a partnership with the a couple of the labor unions that were involved, the City of Toronto, I think, and the contractors, whereby they would give employment opportunities to people that had difficulty getting into the trades. So that was incorporated where money was put into the project through community benefits. That was the first time, so that was a breakthrough. Now, going forward, again, my advice is that the impact of these major construction projects, which are long-term benefits, have a dramatic impact on not the property owners, but the business tenants. These are the little mom and pop shops, the barber shops, you know, the nail shops, the Randy's Patties, all these little shops. They basically cannot withstand 1, 2, 3. Imagine 10 years you're trying to run a business and you can't park and you can't even see your store because there's a trailer parked right 5 feet from your front window for 5 years. 5 years, Mr. Perruzza, Councillor Perruzza. Never mind the little truck you had in Finch there. Remember, it was parked there at Finch and Keele. 5 years with a giant trailer in your front door of your business. So right now, the property owners get a lot of benefit because of the increased property values, capital gain. They do fine. They bought the properties. A lot of them on England bought properties for $125,000 back in the day. God bless them, $125,000. Now they got expropriated, or the property values go up to, you know, $2-3 million for the same property. So the property owners are taken care of. It's the business tenants that need some support to sustain them through this period. And they're employers. They all employ 3, 4, 5 people. Again, I've pointed out before, between Keele and Bathurst, I counted them, 100 stores were closed, still closed today. Can't rent them, no business. So there's 100 jobs. Now, the other thing is, just be careful that the city cannot sustain the support for business or communities by itself on tax benefits. If the province isn't involved in this with some kind of financial support or some kind of tax relief on the education tax or whatever it is, there has to be help from the provincial, if not the federal government, because on our own dime as a City of Toronto, with a property tax base as our only source of income, we're not going to be able to really sustain a program. So if you're going to go into this, make sure there's a partner at the table that helps support the impact on business, again, business tenants, on the communities that are affected by this. So that's the critical caution I have. We can't do it alone on the property tax base. You need help because these projects, they don't last for weeks or months. It's years. And there's going to be major ones coming down the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Matlow.
I want to pick up from where Councillor Cole left off. This is close to my heart too, and I get so frustrated when this sort of false debate happens where we bring the voices, whether it be here or elsewhere, to the forefront, and we talk the voices of the small business owners who are struggling, and then some people will just say, well, it's for the greater good, and we're building these major projects, so they just got to deal with it. And why are they complaining, and why are they crying about it? We're building wonderful projects, and everyone should be happy. A thoughtful person can hold two thoughts in their head at the same time. And there is one reality that, yes, we are strongly supportive of construction like the Crosstown, as we will be with the Relief Line and other major projects that will improve the quality of life in Toronto. But that doesn't mean that we should discount or ignore the reality that there are, I mentioned earlier about somebody who I became friendly with, a shop owner who started crying in my office in front of me. He lost everything. Lost everything. A coffee shop owner on Eglinton I talked to, his life is being, he's really scared. He's incredibly scared. And I could go through dozens of similar conversations with people who have put all the bank's money and their parents' money and their own money, and everybody has tried to help them, but they're struggling. As Mike said, when there's hoarding in front of their shop for years on end, when the parking's been removed, when there are real impacts, they struggle and they're crying to us for help, and for good reason. And it also impacts the quality of life in the community too, because nobody wants boarded up shops on their main street. Now, there's been, I understand that for a City Works project, for example, we can't just remove all, property tax from everybody, or else we're not going to be paying for basic services, and that has been an ask. And I understand as well that when it's like a Crosstown project or a Metrolinx project, why should the city actually, as Mike said, be the ones to have to bear the brunt financially to relieve their burden? The provincial government should be stepping up and helping out. But while we consider big ticket items like tax relief, there are thoughtful, specific things that I've heard from businesses that I think could go a long way, such as, one example, restaurants have said to me, why is the city continuing to force me to pay for a patio permit? Well, we can't use the patio because of the noise and the construction outside. Are there things like that that could just show us that you get it? That you get it, that we can't use this patio is redundant now. So come on. And are there things that we can do creatively to try to relieve their burden, to keep them alive from year 1 to year 10 or whatever it is until the construction's complete? That's what we should be focusing on. And I think, Mike and I and others who have been through this experience can tell you from our own experience how difficult it is for them. And for those of you who will have projects go through your communities, you will find the same thing. This is not about the contest between should we be having great public works projects or not. It's that we should proactively think about who's going to be affected by this so that whether they be residents or businesses alike, they don't become collateral damage. And that's what we want to avoid. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong.
So I don't want to speak for long, but I would just say that this will be an interesting report as the Eglinton Crosstown moves through Scarborough and past businesses like Walmart and Costco, and what type of relief that they might be requesting if we give it to other businesses.
I say the Walton family deserves our hard-earned tax dollars. Oh, no, wait, I don't say that.
Okay, recorded vote.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The item is adopted unanimously, 24 in favor.
MM 2.3. Councillor Fletcher.
I think Councillor Pasternak had a motion there as well. Yes?
Yes, I have.
This was just a question to staff that,
Okay, hold on. Are we asking questions now?
okay, I'm not then. I'll just
No,
make the motion.
you questions?
Okay.
Okay,
No, I don't.
I just want to know because
I have
thought-
no desire to ask a question any longer.
I thought that you were
You
going
have
to speak
questions?
on it.
Well, there are questions here from,
Oh, but Councillor
Deputy Mayor.
Holliday, your name is there. Was that from the previous side? Did we clear the screen?
You didn't clear the screen.
No,
Okay.
but
Do
Councillor
you have
Holliday had
questions
his
or
name
speaking?
on the other item. Okay.
was your name in the, okay.
Okay, questions?
Right here.
Questions. Okay, questions. Councillor Holliday. Hold on. Are we ready? Okay?
I am.
Okay, Councillor Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the staff for waiting. I don't need to place questions to remind members of council what the Community Environment Day is all about, but for the purposes of the record, could staff comment on the main types of collections and services that they do on Environment Day? I think electronics is the big one, household hazardous waste. Can you remind me of just the categories that form the bulk of the purpose of the Environment Day?
Through you, Madam Chair, Matt Kelleher, General Manager of Solid Waste. The majority of the items that are collected at Environment Days are household hazardous waste, tires, electronics, and pharmaceutical items.
Okay, so in the Environment Day, we bring these large bins in, we do some advertising, we tell members of the community, bring on down all the things that you can't normally throw into the garbage or into the recycling. We're going to collect them on Environment Day and make it a community event. Is that an accurate representation of what these things are?
Through you, Madam Speaker, yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so up until now, councillors held one Environment Day per councillor per ward, if they held them, across the city. And that's correct. That's what we've been doing. And so the motion before us looks to increase the number of community environment days in recognition that there's 25 councillors, 25 wards. That's correct. Okay. Any sense in what the cost to do such an exercise is?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the council, it's approximately $375,000 to increase it from 26 events. It's in the planned budget to 51 events.
And this is not a staff recommendation in any way. This is a member-driven request. Like you don't have designs to increase the number of environment days in any waste plans or strategic plans, anything like that.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the council, it's currently at 26 in the proposed solid waste budget.
Okay, given the breadth of things that you collect, are there other places that members of the public can bring old tires, used electronics, used pharmaceuticals, those type of things that are the predominant thing that we collect on Environment Day?
Through you, Madam Speaker, tires can be delivered to any retail outlet that sells tires. Pharmaceuticals can be returned to the pharmacy which you purchase them, and it's managed there. And electronics are collected curbside bi-weekly in our solid waste collection program.
Is it fair to say that since the inception of Environment Days, the options for people to dispose of these type of items has changed? That it's much easier for members of the public to get rid of things that they don't want anymore. That at one time, the Environment Day was really the only way to get rid of it easily or at least cheaply.
Through you, Madam Speaker, over time there's a number of steward programs that have been developed, and they have expanded to accept a number of the materials that are collected at Environment Days.
And is the landscape continuing to change where there is more emphasis on manufacturers and others to reduce packaging and to employ methodologies to take back unwanted or used items to reduce landfill and, frankly, reduce the load on things like environment days?
Through you, Madam Speaker, that's generally the trend in the environment that we have now, where manufacturers are starting to take back more items that they produce.
In addition to the actual pickup of the items and the bulk and the tonnage and that sort of thing, is it fair to say that it's a substantive effort of staff to put on Environment Day, to have all the people go out there, regardless of how many people show up on Environment Day, and also a fair amount of resources that go into advertising these type of events in newspapers and wherever else that they go?
Through you, Madam Speaker, to the councillor, there is effort put into this work, as with any program that's delivered through staff.
And to be very clear, they are advertised as Councillor Holliday's Environment Day, Councillor Fletcher's Environment Day, Councillor XYZ's Environment Day in the community. That's how they're branded.
Through you, councillor, through you, Madam Speaker, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, we have a lot of councillors to ask questions. We might have to come back tomorrow. Councillor Pasternak, if we're not finished by 6.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you to staff. So many of us consider this sort of a major overhaul of Environment Days. Was there any kind of meeting with councillors to get their feedback, meeting with councillor staff, a public consultation to reform or change the program in this way?
Through you, Madam Speaker, to the council, not to my knowledge.
So I understand that in addition to the number of Environment Days, they're restricted to weekends only. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Speaker, to the councillor, generally they've been provided on weekends and on weekdays, depending on the councillor's schedule and when they would like to have them in their community.
But when we tried to book a weekday, we were told they're no longer available on weekdays. Is that correct?
No.
Through you, Madam Speaker, to the councillor, I don't believe that's correct. I can follow up to make sure that that is the fact, but if a councillor would like it to happen on a weekday versus a weekend, we are more than willing to accommodate.
Now, the other thing that your division helped us with were our so-called compost days.
Right.
Do councillors still have the option of
Yes, councillor.
Of doing compost days? So those are still available.
Through you, Madam Speaker, to the councillor, they are available this year.
So would you agree that Environment Days are more than just dropping stuff off? They play an important educational piece. We have Toronto Water there, other educators. Isn't that aligned with the city's philosophy to reduce, to recycle, to reuse? Isn't Environment Day more than just a drop-off center? It provides an important educational role.
Through you, Madam Speaker, to the councillor, you're correct. They do provide education and information to residents on how to properly manage their materials, as well as collect materials to be properly managed by staff.
So finally, I mean, I've done one every year, so I've done, let's say, 8 of them. I find sometimes they're overstaffed. Have you looked at the staffing model to maybe reduce the staffing complement slightly, but actually do 2 per ward?
So through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, that's something that is currently being investigated right now in order to align our resources more effectively, and we'll be able to report back fairly soon on that, that conclusion.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Why do we have all these questions?
We did reduce staff. We did reduce
Like,
it by,
Councillor Karygiannis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you to staff, what is the cost last year in order to look after the 44 Environment Days?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, approximately $900,000.
And what would the cost be this year in order for for us to have 50, I believe.
The current budget, as proposed, the cost for 26 events is approximately $600,000. If that was to be increased to 51, so 2 per ward plus 1 for the mayor, it would be approximately $1 million.
Hold on, last year was how much again?
Approximately 900,000.
And that was for 44?
Correct.
45.
And
45.
45. And this year for 26, or if it goes to 52, the cost would be again what?
So if it goes up to 51,
right?
So 2 per ward plus 1 for the mayor, it's approximately $1 million. In our proposed budget for 25 plus 1 for the mayor, it's around 600,000.
So we're going to have an increase. Madam Chair, I can't even hear myself.
Councillor Cressy, please.
Thank you. So there will be an increase of $100,000.
$100,000 from the 2018 budget, approximately $375,000 based on the...
Would that $100,000 be something that if people will come directly to the depots versus coming to the, would that be a wash? Would it be equal type of thing? I mean, when you go to the depots, you still need people there to handle the stuff, correct?
Through you, Madam Speaker, that is correct. We still need people at the depots to manage that.
So then, I didn't hear the answer. Is there going to be a wash? Like the $100,000, would it be absorbed if we're to hold 51 events versus people coming to the depots?
Through you, Madam Chair, no. It would not be a wash.
There will not be a wash, so that'd be an extra. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bailao.
So when did we start to have Environment Days in the city?
1991.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the Councillor, 1991.
1991. What was the intention?
Through the chair, the intentions at that time was to collect household hazardous waste, and also at the time we were distributing backyard composters. So the intention was to primarily deal with household hazardous waste and also provide backyard composters to manage organic waste.
Okay.
And there was some education element as well around that as well.
Was there education?
Yes.
Do you still believe that the population of Toronto still needs a component of education?
Oh, absolutely.
That's why we're investing also thousands of dollars in campaigns in the TTC, for example, correct?
I
think I just saw a campaign on
right.
waste management on the TTC, correct?
Correct. The operating budget for solid waste management services includes a budget for communication and education, which is in the millions of dollars, actually.
It's in the millions of dollars.
That's right.
And do you consider this also an education, part of that communications and education?
There is a budget associated with communication specifically for Environment Days.
Okay. And I just found out that you could drop some of these things in some of the places that you mentioned it. But I know that I have a lot of residents that wait for the Environment Day to get rid of their paint cans and their tires and their electrics. Don't you agree that if we make it easier for them, because they already know, this is already something they know, and that we have a much higher chance of having actually these properly separated and then recycled?
Through you, Madam Speaker, ease of use is an extremely important feature of a well-managed solid waste system, and having multiple depots and multiple transfer stations and multiple businesses that accept these materials all feed into that solid waste management system. So they are currently available whenever you need to bring materials back. You don't have to wait for that one E-day.
But are these Environment Days something that people have relied on to do that ease of use and dispose of their waste?
Through you, Madam Speaker, I'd say that they definitely assist in making it easier to manage your materials, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
I just wanted to ask our CFO, I gather that this actually, we can't make this decision proper. It should go to the budget process to be finalized there. But we can advise the budget process that we're interested in having this restored. Would I be right to put it like that?
Through the Speaker, that's correct.
Very good. Thank you so much. This is, I'm just going to ask the city manager a question. When we left here in July, August, September, whatever our last meeting was, and we instructed our staff to go to court, one of the arguments they made was that if we go to 25 seats, that our constituents will have less service, less access, etc. And I'm assuming that there is an intention to maintain service for the new area, let's say, that I've taken on in the city. Would I be right?
So through the speaker, I think that's a fair statement, yes.
And so so one environment day was the standard, but that was for the old council with 44, or soon to be 47 back then. Would you recognize that there's distinct communities that expect to get their service maintained at that level and would feel that really left out in this time?
Yeah, I mean, through the speaker, I completely follow your logic and I understand your point, and I'm sure some of them, by seeing fewer environment days than what they're used to, would conclude that this is a reduction in service. So I think you're making a fair point.
And that wouldn't be your intention. This was not a malicious thing, just unintentional, and now we have a problem because our constituents are expecting really to be able to do the same thing they were able to do in another part of the ward now that I'm that councillor.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair characterization.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Cook, I just wondered, the compost that we can order, because many of us have small, during the cleanup, we may put compost there for residents, and we pay for that. Is that to be continued, or is that something that is now, we don't have access to that program?
No, through you, Madam Speaker, my understanding is there's no change to the Compost Day program.
And so this motion that I have here would basically approve a second compost environment day for someone that wants it. Some councillors might not need that, but councillors like myself and others have an old borough that are now part of our neighborhood. So that would work if we were to take the days and let the staff know what days we might like, and then if budget approves it, then we would have our days already set. Would that work for your staff?
Through you, Madam Speaker, recognizing the importance of Environment Days, Councillor Fletcher, our new General Manager, Matt Kelleher, you've had the quick opportunity to meet. We've been discussing the opportunities to make sure that we can make this happen for you. He has already put into place actions to start tentatively planning those second days for you, pending the outcome of the Budget Committee.
And then I'll just come over to our staff and ask that the Environment Day is a very creative way of bringing people together around the environment in the City of Toronto, and it's very, very popular. Have you ever considered, and your division's very creative in their advertising, trying to get people to recycle. Have you ever considered something a bit more creative at Environment Day around the education package that you could be offering to the tens of thousands of people that dutifully bring their things there?
Through you, Madam Speaker, I think there's always ways to enhance outreach and the creativity. To be quite honest, my focus over the past less than 4 weeks being here has been on budget, not trying to be creative in E-Days. But it's definitely something we can take back and make sure that we can make it a good experience for all the residents that do show up.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, a point of order. Answers that we just heard, if I may. Are we still getting compost in the new format? Are we going to be able to get more than one load? Because that's not what I was told. Can we clarify that, please?
That's not clear.
Well,
okay, why don't you just go up and ask him? No, just go up and ask him. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Bradford, maybe you can ask that question.
For you, Speaker. Can we confirm the amount of compost bags that we're going to be getting? Or bags of compost?
So through you, Madam Speaker, to the Council, historically, the compost has been dropped off in a big heap, and residents would scoop it up and take it themselves. In working towards a more efficient process and handing out materials, we will have it bagged, and that will be dropped off for residents to pick up. That's really the only change in the program this year, is that the material will be bagged for ease of use for the residents.
Can we buy extra?
Okay, is it the same amount of material like that you would have had before now in one spot? Or is it half? Is it one ward, one former 44 ward worth of material?
So through you,
or is it two together in one spot?
So through you, Madam Chair, to the Council, on compost days you can order as much as we have in stock, and we will try to make sure that we can deliver it. What we will be doing in the next few days is sending out a notice to all councillors to identify the number of loads that they would like and the number of compost days in order to manage the supply of our material. And historically, we charge the councillors $250 per load, and that will continue this year as well.
$250 per load.
Correct.
There you go, Jimmy. $250. Okay, sorry. So my questions.
Thank you very much.
The biggest, what's the biggest cost in actually delivering Environment Day? You said $900K previously, $600K now with the cut, $1 million if we went back to 52. What's the biggest? Is it staff time? Is it facility rental?
Through you, Madam Chair,
Compost.
it's the staff complement.
Okay, staff complement. So the savings that we were having there, $300K, that's primarily the idea is we would have fewer staff.
That's correct.
But we might also have more people who actually show up. More residents who might come out to participate.
Yes, that's possible.
Okay. And then is there an education component of this for solid waste? For the programs that you offer, do you use this day as a way to educate and share information and communicate with residents?
Through you, Madam Speaker, yes, we communicate and share information education with the residents.
Is there a piece of your communications or marketing budget that goes specifically to these events, not just to promote them, but to actually educate people about our programs and ways that they can be more efficient and environmentally sensitive?
Through you, Madam Speaker, yes, there is.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so what we're doing here today is just asking for a second Environment Day, not clarification of what Environment Days are. Councillor Carroll.
Madam Speaker, I apologize if this isn't the clarification you want, but I need this clarification before I vote on the Environment Days, because I'm now hearing the answer stated different ways. Can we have separate compost days anymore? I'm understanding now that people have phoned to book and been rejected.
Through you, Madam Speaker, the separate compost days.
Madam Speaker, I'm having trouble hearing. Sorry.
That's okay.
I want to get you off to a good start. We ought to be able to hear you because you're new.
Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Bailao. Councillor Cook.
Yes. Yes.
Through you, Madam Speaker, to the Council, there are no changes with compost days. They will be offered this year based on councillors' demand on when they would like to have them. What we'll be doing over the next few days is sending out a notice to the councillors to see what days they would like to have their compost days on and the number of loads of compost that they would like to have delivered in order for us to balance the supply and demand to make sure that we have enough supply for all the councillors. Okay, so people having had those calls rejected up until now, it's just because you weren't ready for this offering that's about to happen? We should soon hear that we can have compost days. Through you, Madam Speaker, that is correct. Council will be provided a communication shortly. And it will, and compost included in Environment Days will be bagged. What about the independent compost days? Do we get truckloads, or those will be bagged as well? We plan on having those bagged as well. So, what is the cost of the bagging as opposed to dumping a truckload at $200 to $300? My staff would be better at telling you what the cost of each truckload is, but here we are looking for $283 in efficiency on Environment Days. What is the cost of bagging this compost that my residents are deliriously happy to just load into their truck right now? Yeah, through you, Madam Speaker, to the Council, it's approximately the same price. What we have to do is you have to factor in the cost of cleaning up the remaining compost that's on the the driveway on the yard. So the bag compost is relatively the same price.
Well, my residents don't leave much behind, but I hear you. Thank you.
Councillor Holliday to speak. Pardon? Oh, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Fletcher, do you want to speak?
Yes. I have a motion.
Councillor Fletcher to speak.
I know I've revised it for the chair of budget, so he's far more comfortable with that. So I just amended.
Well, we have to.
Stop it. Just so basically, understanding that this has to go into the budget process. We're not making that decision today, but that have our staff undertake a process where we could book those councillors that wish to have a second Environment Day, can book that day. And then presuming that we agree to this in budget, those will be already booked. So that's that process setting up there. And there's no requirement to have a second one unless you want to have one. So that's replacing the original motion.
I really don't think that councillors want to finish this agenda today. Well, Councillor Holliday?
Thanks, Madam Speaker. I have a motion, if I could ask to have it on the screen. Motion's pretty clear. Cancel the Environment Days. Hey, look,
cancel word 2.
They go high, I go low. But
How about you can choose to cancel yours?
I'll offer some comment. So I was listening to the dialogue about somehow citizens are going to have less access and no education about the environment. Like, look, think about it. We got 25 wards. Everyone gets invited to an Environment Day. It's not as if people are counting these. So it's sort of a farce that somebody is going to miss a missing Environment Day because everyone is still invited to one. I mean, the only thing that's something that people are going to miss is when they open up their utility bill after this next budget round. We saw what the proposal is, to hike the garbage rates, to go and change the funding that we do at a base level into the garbage. So, you know, I want everyone to play this tape back when everyone calls them and complains about the boost in price on medium and large bins of $100. And you can tell them why an extra Environment Day is such a great idea. As far as I'm concerned, these things are redundant. They've morphed into something that they weren't originally. They were originally to collect household hazardous waste, and as we heard, to distribute green bins and composters. The fact is, all that stuff is done differently now. You don't need to go to Environment Day to dump your paint. You can take it to the local store that sells paint, and they take it back. So the world's changed. You know, this is all about self-promotion of councillors. Call it for what it is. I understand the temptation. We can see the wagons got circled as soon as we started picking at this. I'm calling it exactly what it is. And so my motion is go and cancel it. If you want to have an Environment Day, councillors have a nice, fat budget now that we just doubled up. We got lots of money for promotion. So if councillors want to have an Environment Day, they should use their office budget and explain to their constituents why they think it's such a great value. We had one booked already now, and now we just want to double it down. It just doesn't square up. We're going to go back to constituents and tell them that we need money now for solid waste. And I don't know how I could possibly explain that. I can't support doubling up Environment Days.
Thank you. We do have a question for you. 3 minutes.
Madam Speaker, this might be off topic, but I'll ask the question. In order to save money, why don't we just cancel word 2?
Oh, dear. Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong.
Call the question.
Yes!
we only have one speaker?
The motion to call the question does not carry. The vote is 9 to 12.
Okay, Councillor Pasternak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Despite our bold attempts, we've been unable to book our Environment Days on Environment Day on weekdays, and I want to make sure that
Read the motion first.
if you could put it on the screen. City Council directed General Manager Solid Waste Management to revise the Community Environment Day booking policy such that events can be booked on any day of the week and not restricted to weekdays. I should point out that weekends. Sorry, I should point out that probably having that large, maybe too large complement of staff on a weekend is probably costing us more money as you're paying overtime than having them spread out during the week. But we must be respectful of our diverse communities, and we must be able to have the option of booking them on weekdays. That being said, I've been a big fan of the Environment Days for many years. They're extremely popular. They're a great educational tool. They're a great way to get dangerous waste and possibly flammable products out of households. It's very cost efficient. It's a vital service. People enjoy coming there and meeting with their city councillor, as well as being able to clear out their garages and basements from potentially hazardous waste. It plays an important role. It's very popular. I urge that we not just keep it, but expand it to those wards, double up on those wards for those councillors who request it. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Was I quick?
Okay. We can put the motions on the screen. Councillor Holliday's motion first. This is to delete Environment Day. And also leaf pickup.
Councillor McKelvey, please.
The amendment does not carry. The vote is 1 to 22.
Motion 1 by Councillor Fletcher. On favor? Carry. Recorded vote.
Councillor Matlow, please.
Okay, motion 3 by Councillor Pasternak. On favor? Carried. I always thought it was that way anyway. Okay. Item as amended, on favor? Recorded vote.
Councillor Layton, please.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The item is amended, carries 21 to 3.
MM 2.4. Do we have questions? This is on Tommy Thompson Park Shuttle Service. Do we have questions? No? Councillor Fletcher, you held the item.
Crawford, the budget chief, just wanted to make sure that we weren't passing that it was sent into the budget process. Pardon me? That it was going to the budget process, and indeed that's where this is going. It's not, we're not agreeing to, we're sending that request to budget for the process. That's it.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, sorry, we have another speaker.
Yes. Councillor Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So without getting into a debate, I will just register my unhappiness again with these types of motions onto the floor.
For being here.
I mean, look, you know, we're facing tax hikes and we're looking at enhancements of services. And, you know, if I wasn't worried about the risk that this council might actually pass it, I'd put a motion to have hay rides in some of the parks in my area. I mean, we're just getting into more and more things here, and I'm not sure that all of this stuff is sustainable. And I just, you know, I'm glad it's going at least to budget rather than being decided here on the floor, but I regret that these motions come forward.
That actually gave me a great idea. I'm going to say hay rides. Hay rides.
Okay.
Call the question.
Janie says yes.
All in favor? Recorded. It's going to budget.
Councillor Thompson, please. Councillor Thompson, your vote, please.
Councillor Hillian, please.
The item is adopted 20 to 4.
Okay. MM 2.15. A New Year's parking resolution. Do we have questions? Questions to staff? Councillor Holliday?
All right. Mic's on? Great, thank you. Through you to staff, and I'm not sure who has to answer this, but do we have any precedent for trying to forgive parking?
We erase them.
There are some cancellation guidelines that that council has adopted in the past. We do recommend, though, a bylaw amendment for that sort of direction to staff.
So those are cancellation guidelines for tickets that have been issued. And have I understood the motion before us correctly is that it's saying not to enforce in those periods? If I got that right?
We were not entirely clear on that.
Potentially is the motion directing not to enforce at certain periods of time.
Not to enforce the permit.
Through you, Madam Speaker, there is a request to the police to not enforce at particular times.
As our solicitor, do you have any concerns with any motion that is requesting somebody not to enforce?
Certainly, the Chief of Police is responsible for policing matters, so would not take direction from council. And generally speaking, council should refrain from involving itself in enforcement, yes.
Okay. Do we have any idea on how we would provide guidance to the police, the dispatch office, when an angry resident calls up and says, I got nowhere to park. There's a bunch of cars in my neighborhood. I have no place for my vehicle. I can't even get near my home. what do we tell the police?
Through you, Madam Speaker, I do not know how we would involve ourselves in that, and I do not believe it would be appropriate.
Thank you.
How much permit parking have you got?
None.
Deputy Mayor Minnan-Wong.
What's the foregone revenue for doing something like this?
That's what the report would tell us.
Oh,
Through the speaker, it's 18,000.
thank you.
How did they know that?
Councillor Fletcher, questions?
Where is this?
So there were about 450 to 600 tickets that were given out on New Year's in permit parking areas, correct? Is that the estimate?
Through the speaker, that's correct.
And there's permit parking in how many wards?
Through the speaker, I don't have that information, but I can ask.
I think not all wards have permit parking. We know that.
That is correct.
I'm looking over here. Show of hands, who has permit parking?
Who has? Who has?
Mostly, I'm coming to your streets and looking at them. So this really is, do we have any idea how much revenue we forego by not charging people on the TTC on New Year's? No? But we would agree that because of the policy to ride free on New Year's Eve, that we're foregoing revenue. Would that be right in that assumption? Yes? I'm sorry. Nobody wants to answer
Through the
that
speaker,
question.
that is correct.
So we do have a policy for the TTC. We're trying to encourage people to take TTC. And we're foregoing some revenue. And so not all areas of the city, let's say if you're in some ward, even the north part of my ward, and you decide to keep your stay over because you've had too many drinks on New Year's, more than likely you would not get a ticket. No? Anybody want to comment? The answer is you wouldn't.
No, through you, Madam Speaker, I would suggest that that is at the discretion of the Toronto Police Service, Chief of Police.
Oh, yes.
Whether he directs enforcement to be undertaken for parking
Right.
on New Year's Eve or not. And I
Well,
believe they
yes.
did not this year.
This is operational guidelines that the police have for all types of parking infractions, but in permit parking areas, we have in the past indicated we'd like to have a grace period for different things and request them to adjust their operational guidelines. Are you aware of that?
Through you, Madam Speaker, I am aware that on occasion there are special circumstances or requests made and consideration given to how enforcement is done.
But City Council has asked that those operational guidelines be adjusted for certain circumstances, particularly in permit parking areas, which are a lucrative area. Yes?
Through you, Madam Speaker, Council has made those requests, and the Chief of Police has responded that, in fact, he does not take direction from Council.
But we're not directing, we're simply requesting.
Yes.
So it is up to the Chief of Police, and the City Manager would advise the Chief of Police we'd like to have that around enforcement and take that into consideration for their operational guidelines. That would be the pathway if this was passed.
Through
Correct?
you, Madam Speaker, this is a
Okay,
request.
thank you.
Councillor Matlow.
I don't see Vince here, but perhaps one of you can answer. With respect to the permit parking inventory, has there been any consideration, whether the intent is good or not, what the impact would be, through you, Madam Speaker, on the inventory that we have on streets where there are streets where there's, they're max at capacity, and could there be an adverse effect of sort of messing with the inventory on New Year's in that way? Is there somebody who can answer that?
Sorry, through you, Madam Speaker, we're struggling to understand the question, Councillor Matlow. Are you asking about changing inventories for on-street permit parking specifically for New Year's?
Yeah.
I am not aware. We will have to get somebody down here that can help with that. I don't believe we do that.
Do you understand, like, the, where we allow for permit parking, the inventory means the number of spaces that we have on the street. And there's a certain number of permits that are provided to however many spaces have been determined to be on the street. given that, like, if you spoke to Vince, for example, who's very proud of his work, he will tell you that he keeps a real close eye on if the inventory is up to date, and if you have as many permits as you have spaces, and where there are suggestions that might be out of whack, he tries to correct it along with his staff. So the question is that if we are asking that be ignored essentially on any given night, has there been any exploration into what the impact would be on the permit holders when they come home and they want to park on their street that night?
Through you, Madam Speaker, that sounds like a great question, Councillor Matlow. I expect that there would be a concern about the impact, and certainly something I can take away and talk with my people about and come back to you.
Would it, given the, say this delicately, the dearth of information perhaps that we have about exploring this positive suggestion, might it be wiser to send this to the appropriate committee to get some of these answers, and then if the answers come back as to tell us that there wouldn't be any significant concerns or adverse impact, then perhaps we should support it, but maybe we need this information in front of us first.
Through you, Madam Speaker, certainly I am aware that the issue of on-street parking, particularly downtown, is quite a contentious and complicated matter. I know this came up when we talked about car share spaces, etc. I do also believe that our GM of Transportation is looking at this parking issue more broadly, so I would appreciate the opportunity for us to get the proper information to inform your discussion through a committee process.
Then I may help draft a motion to that effect. Okay,
I'd be more than happy to help.
Sorry?
Well, no, she just said.
Point of order. If referral has been waived, does that mean that we don't now that it's on the floor have an opportunity to send it to a committee?
That's correct.
That's right.
That's why I was going to ask the question. We should have
Is
not
there,
waived referral.
No, I agree with you. Is there any procedural way to arrive at the reasonable place, which is to get this kind of information at this point?
Can we not refer to? Can we not refer to committee? No, but make a report request. Yeah. That you can do.
I'll work with the clerks on just the most accurate procedural way to achieve that.
You can make a report request. Councillor Fletcher, did you want to speak? Okay. Okay. We have one more item, and then we have to go in camera, members. Councillor Holliday, you held down MM 2.21. Okay, Councillor Holliday. That's the acquisition of Hearn Generating Station.
I need the screen.
Okay, Councillor Holliday.
So I just want to make a point on this before we vote. I think there's a lot of things that need to be understood about the Hearn Generating Station and why the vote is important. So we did already vote on exploring or supporting that a report come forward to establish this as a heritage site. This is what we're talking about. Here's the Hearn Generating Station. We can debate all day about its merits as a historical site. We can debate all day about its merits as a property to purchase. But thank you, Councillor Peruzza. I can focus here just for a moment. One of the big pieces of this site is this smokestack. I hear there's asbestos in it. I hear all sorts of things, but it's a great big smokestack that you can't miss if you're down in the harbor. Why is that important, and why do we want to be really cautious as being owners of this site, as being responsible for this site, and even as designating segments of this site as historical, including that smokestack, and perhaps maybe we should not. And the reason can be shown in just this aerial photo. This is the, if I can get some quiet from the chatterbox over here.
Councillor Peruzza, please.
He hasn't spoken in 2 days,
Please,
and all of a
let's,
sudden he's
let's
got
try to
interrupt
get
me.
through this. Okay.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. So I won't be long, but I just want to point out the existence of the airport in the harbor, and what's important to understand is the orientation of the runway. If you follow the line of the runway, you'll see that it intersects with the Hearn Generating Station over here. The Hearn Generating Station tower is so tall, you can see how it casts a shadow. From my understanding of the airport and the airport's operations, is that that smokestack is very important to flight paths. Aircraft will actually maneuver to avoid it, and when they take off, they will actually take a steeper plane of incline in order to avoid that. My understanding as well, and I'm not the expert on this, but there are people around that are experts, and there are questions to be asked before these reports come back, is what is the overall impact on that stack towards any changes or growth to the airport? Now again, we could fill a day with a council's debate about the airport, but I think everyone in this chamber would recognize the economic impact of that airport and the strategic importance that asset is to this city. So the message I like to leave to councillors is be very careful on this. These are not votes to be taken lightly. They have strategic and city building impacts, and very specifically is the impact of and the future of that smokestack. So I don't know if there's a way in the future that if this council wants to own that building and create a historical site, if we can find a way to tear down a big ugly smokestack because it will have a tremendous impact on the city and on the airport and the strategic importance of that airport. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Matlow. On this?
Why'd they line up the runway that way?
My name was up on the other item.
Okay.
You had already spoken.
All right, so Councillor Fletcher.
I'm just going to urge council to support this motion that I made and seconded by our mayor, that for taking anything into consideration, that this is a site that was a provincially owned site, recently sold, and it is actually deemed in all of the Portland's planning documents as a landmark site, one of the most important buildings that we have on the waterfront, and those 40 acres there seen as making a huge contribution to Toronto's future waterfront. And this is an exercise not only to ensure its heritage nature, as well as to look at how we might ensure that for years to come, and in the building out of the east end of the waterfront, this building would play an incredibly important role, make a big contribution, and it's seen as a building around the world, not just here in the city of Toronto. So attempting to, now that the market value has been established of the building, attempting to bring that into the public realm as part of the waterfront redevelopment, I think it's the time to do that.
Which building is this?
Okay. On the motion. Recorded.
Councillor Robinson, please.
The item is adopted 20-2.
Okay, Councillor Matlow, is your motion ready? Is it ready? Okay, Councillor Matlow, if you want to just
Yeah. I just want to place the motion. I'll just say in a very quick version, because I think my questions sort of, kind of addressed the concerns raised. Councillor Fletcher, I have no doubt, is trying to do something very positive here. And I may end up supporting that at the end of the day. This is not an opposition to Councillor Fletcher in any way. What I don't know, though, and what you don't know, is just factually, if you are a resident on a street where there's parking, and you come home on New Year's Eve and you want to park on a spot that you pay a fee to park on, and the inventory is now over capacity because you've got party goers parking on the street because of this resolution, and if the police adopt it, what is the impact on you? Can we, have we considered this? I don't believe we have yet. And as Deputy City Manager Cook said, it would in fact be helpful for us just to have that relevant information. So that's why we've reworded it in the way that you see in front of you. And if it's a good idea, we'll support it ultimately, and based on the advice from the city manager and staff. And if it's not an idea, then we should have reservations about it. But it's as simple as that.
Okay, we have the amendment on the screen. All in favor? I thought you already spoke. Oh, that was on the other one. Councillor Holliday.
So, thank you, Madam Speaker. Look, I just want to make the point that I think we're poking around in a place we shouldn't be. This is about enforcement. This is about existing bylaws. There are systems in place to purchase a temporary permit for parking overnight. As a city, we got this. What I don't understand is how we would ever square up with anybody that calls in and says, I got no place to park. There's a bunch of cars parked illegally. Come write some tickets and get them out of here. And so, look, I don't know. There's no way for me to do this in a motion, but I'd love to publish the phone numbers of all the councillors and their cell phones so that, if somebody calls the parking dispatch, they can just refer it over to the councillor to sort out, at 2 or 3 in the morning. But people just want to park by their homes. We see this at community council all the time when we have terrible fights over parking permits. I think there's a point to be made. People just expect the laws to be enforced. And if somebody wants to stay overnight, we've got a system in place where there's room in those parking areas to go and apply and purchase a temporary permit. It's not that hard. Anyways, I just want to make the point.
Okay, on the amendment.
Recorded.
Recorded.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The amendment carries 16-6.
Item as amended, on favor, carried. Recorded.
Councillor Pasternak and Councillor Perruzza, please.
The item is amended, carries 19-2.
Okay, members of council, we have our last item, which is page 3, CC 2.2, the legal challenge to Bill 5. So we need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Cressy. Okay, can you read the motion?
Speaker, that council recess its public session to meet as committee of the whole in closed session to consider CC 2.2 legal challenge to Bill 5, the Better Local Government Act.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, if I can ask the public and everyone to vacate the council chambers, except for the councillors and the staff that are involved in this item. Okay, are we in public? Yes. Okay, thank you. Council has completed its closed session consideration of item CC 2.2. No motions were placed in the closed session. We will now proceed with the public debate on the item. Councillor Matlow.
Madam Speaker, is the motion ready? Okay. So my motion is to oppose the province's appeal at the Court of Appeal, to pursue a leave to appeal application to the Supreme Court of Canada in the event of the province is successful on its appeal at the Court of Appeal, and to take any further steps necessary and consistent with these instructions in consultation with the city manager. I'll simply say that I believe that regardless of what side of the debate that many of us were on with respect to how many wards there should be in Toronto, I do believe that if not all of us, at least the vast majority of us, believe that the City of Toronto should have the ability to have purview over some basic decisions that affect our local democracy, and that our local democratic institution should not be messed around with in the midst of an ongoing election. It is very easy when we are victors to accept that the status quo is just fine with us. But I believe that we are taking a principled position to continue our pursuit to seek clarification as to what role we as the representatives of the people of Toronto have in the destiny of our own city and our own local democracy and the voices, the many voices in this city who we represent. And I want to moreover say that while there have been divisions about different tactics and strategies, and there's been a lot of tension amongst some of us, and certainly even not seen eye to eye in the individual ward elections, I want to acknowledge that I believe that Mayor Tory and the majority of council are completely on the same page with this common goal to make sure that we can represent our constituents well and that our local democracy is strong and intact and has integrity. Thank you.
Okay. On the motion, Councillor Grimes, point of order. Yes.
What happens if Councillor Manos fails? If someone has to move number 2? What happens if that motion fails? It's not going. I just want to know what happens if that fails. Where does that leave our solicitor? I'll make it simple. I'm going to move recommendation number 2. Drop it.
Okay.
That's the end of it.
Oh, you're speaking?
Did you want to speak? Well, Councillor Peruzza, you had your name up there. You don't have to. Huh? Do you want? Okay. Mayor Tory to speak.
Madam Speaker, I just wanted to say that I will be voting for option 1, and I want to explain why. It is in part because Council gave very clear instructions by majority, and I realize there were people who voted against that back at the time of the discussion of the size of the Council and what was going on with Bill 5 at the time. Of much greater importance to me at this stage of the game is that whether it's the current government or some government 20 years from now when we're not here, I believe that the appeal, decided one way or another in terms of what the decision is, may well provide us with something we were severely lacking in, which I think would be beneficial for the country to have and for our city to have, which is the court's reasoning that may put some context around the whole matter of the province's legislative power to do things affecting cities, and in particular the City of Toronto. And I think that kind of judicial reasoning might be of help to some future council, or this one, in some future event. Because right now, if you read some of the opinions we've had occasion to read, and they've been released to the newspaper, so I'm not telling any secrets here, you know, on the subject of transit unloading and other things, there is both not much that sort of speaks to the role of municipalities, and there's not much that gives much reason for encouragement in that regard. And I don't know whether a court decision on this matter will produce anything like that, but I think some reasoning that takes into account a document that was written in 1867 and maybe sort of takes a look at it in 2019 from the perspective of a court could be helpful. No guarantee of that, but to me that is reason enough for the future of other events that involve the province of Ontario and the city of Toronto, whether it's under 5 governments from now, might be helpful. And I think as a result, there's very little downside in having this appeal go forward. To me, it has little to do with what position people took at the time of the debate on Bill 5. It's really just to do with trying to get some help for future occasions as much as anything else, as well as following the originally expressed wishes of Council to appeal these matters. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Now, Councillor Grimes, did you say you wanted to move a motion? Oh, you moved it. Okay. 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 So what motion goes first? Councillor Matlow's motion first.
The motion carries 15 to 9.
Okay. Okay, the other motion is redone. Okay, that's for that item. Members, before I ask for motion to enact the general bills, may I have a motion regarding the consideration of submissions on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Speaker. The committee and council considered submissions in making a decision on zoning bylaw and official plan amendments.
On favor, recorded vote.
Councillor Matlow, please.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The motion carries unanimously, 26 in favor.
Councillor Carroll, you have a motion to introduce certain bills.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That leave be granted to introduce bills 222 to 278 inclusive. And again, happy birthday, Martha Carroll.
Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? Recorded vote.
Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Ford, and Councillor Thompson, please.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
The motion to introduce the bills carries unanimously, 26 in favor.
Shall these bills be passed and declared as a bylaw? Recorded vote.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor Matlow, please.
Councillor Perruzza, please.
Motion to enact the bills carries unanimously, 26 in favor.
Councillor Layton, you have a motion to introduce the confirming bill.
Yes, that leave be granted to introduce a bill to confirm to the point of the introduction of this motion the proceedings of City Council Meeting 2 on January 30th and 31st, 2019.
Shall leave be granted to introduce this bill? Recorded vote.
Councillor Matlow, Councillor Karygiannis.
The motion to introduce the confirming bill carries unanimously, 26 in favor.
Shall this bill be passed and declared as a bylaw? Recorded vote.
Councillor Fillion, please.
Councillor Matlow, please.
The motion to enact the confirming bill carries unanimously, 26 in favor.
Okay, thank you to members of council, staff. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.